Hi nurses, welcome to Shift Change, the podcast for nurse leaders who are ready to shift their thinking from just a nurse to claim their position as a powerful agent for change. I'm your host, Amy Deagle, founder and CEO of the International Network of Nurse Leaders. We believe in the power of nurses to change the world, so let's get started. Hi nurses, welcome back to another episode of the Shift Change podcast. If you are new here and joining us for the first time, welcome. I'm Amy Deagle, founder of the International Network of Nurse Leaders and your host for the Shift Change podcast. If you are one of our loyal listeners, welcome back and thank you so much for your support. It absolutely means the world to us, and I just love bringing these amazing guests to you to share their stories and help inspire you. So if you feel inspired by any of the guests and you would hop over to whatever platform you listen to your podcast on and leave us a rating or review, it just means so much to us, and we love hearing how these episodes impact you. So for today's episode, I'm really excited to bring our first international guest to you, Matt Daley. So Matt and I connected through Nursing Now 2020 campaign. He's part of the Nightingale Challenge. And if you don't know what the Nightingale Challenge is, it's an amazing initiative that focuses on getting nurses under the age of 35 some leadership development and really focusing on bringing out emerging leaders. It is still for you if you are over the age of 35, so it's not discriminating that way, but they're just counting the numbers of nurses under the age of 35 in their data to show how the leadership programs have been impactful. And so there are countries signed up from all over the world. It's an incredible initiative. If your organization isn't signed up yet, make sure to check it out. We are going to link everything in the show notes. And Matt will talk a bit about it in his episode as well. It's so fitting that this is Year of the Nurse, and he has such a great cause that he works for. So I'm really excited to bring you this interview. And I also just want to take a moment and remind you that while this is the Year of the Nurse and there's incredible celebrations going on and talks about leadership, we really need to use this time to get into action. And I know sometimes that can seem overwhelming and we don't know where to start. And it seems like we have such huge challenges to solve that we don't know just what we can do as one individual person. But nothing will change if each one of us isn't willing to make a change within ourselves. We really need to claim some personal responsibility and personal leadership and show up a little bit differently. And so whether you have, grand visions of helping impact the changes in the nursing profession that we need to make, or you want to make changes within your work environment or changes in your personal life. Because let's face it, as nurses, we give, and we rarely take time to ourselves. So if spending a little more time on yourself and showing up differently for yourself is your goal for 2020 for Year of the Nurse, I applaud that. I think it's wonderful. Whatever your goal is, however big of impact you think you want to be making this year, I would love to help support you with that. nurseleaders.ca/2020nurse has a free challenge running, and it's all about getting into activity. And as you heard previously, we have the Shift Change podcast Coffee Break Edition, where we're going to be breaking down leadership and personal change into small things that you can start implementing right away that I promise you, as they add up over time, will have a huge impact in your life. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that challenge. We'd love for you to join us, nurseleaders.ca/2020nurse. And without further ado, we will get to the interview with Matt Daley. Matt Daley is currently the practice development nurse for career progression at Surrey and Sussex Healthcare NHS Trust before recently joining the Nursing Now team as the Health Education England John Burdett Fellow and is the Nightingale Challenge Fellow. After 23 years serving with the Royal Navy in various roles around the world on land and sea, his career as a registered nurse has led him into the NHS, from the Queen Alexandra's Royal Naval Nursing Service through ward and intensive care nursing, innovative programs, and then into educational roles. His passion of motivating, developing leadership ability, and guiding the career progression journey in new and experienced nurses is met through teaching, coaching, developmental mentoring, and inspiring nurses to meet the challenges and demands of leadership and teamwork in the modern nursing environment. So welcome, Matt. I am thrilled to have you here with us on the Shift Change podcast.
Oh, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here as well.
So, Matt, I am so excited. You are my first international guest on the podcast. Yes. So you get to hold that honor for all of time of the Shift Change podcast.
That's a lot of weight to carry on my shoulders, I'm sure.
No, it's going to be great. So I was just wondering if you can kind of walk us through your nursing career and your journey into where you are today and some of the highlights you've had along the way. And we've got, like I said, about an hour today, so don't feel like you have to shortchange us at all. We love hearing the stories, so I'll let you dive in.
Thank you. So nursing has always really been an interest. It's always been the background. My aunt was a nurse, and I listened to her a lot, and we've had family experience of nurses. When my grandmother, quite a few years ago when I was young, she was dying of cancer. And the care and the expertise and the knowledge that they gave were just very, very inspiring. But really, unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity. The qualifications weren't available around around that time and going into school. So it never really came up on the radar. It was interesting, and it was like, I could really do this. The other thing is that I'm really, really squeamish. I was very, very squeamish as a child. So any thought of any blood or anything like that kind of put me off really until I was a little bit older. So I left school at 17, joined the Royal Navy as a writer, so that's a clerk, in 1991, and I stayed in that role for 5 years. So I worked around the country and on board ship, went around the world. Very formative experiences. I worked in the Fleet Air Arms Squadron during the Balkans War, and that, I think, really influenced me by the activities that were going on shoreside and what we were involved in. And it really focused my mind on how I wanted to help people, I think, people directly. So I put aside my squeamishness, my dislike of blood, became a first aider on board, and then based on that experiences and looking around to see what opportunities were around for me, nursing was still way off. I had to work my way there. So I transferred to the Royal Naval Medical Branch. And I think that surprised everyone. So as I said, being squeamish. And I remember being the very first time I actually saw anything medical, I fainted. I was watching just a mole removal, and I think the knife and the blood, and the next thing I knew, I woke up in the recovery position. So I was kind of thinking, well, maybe, let's go for it. So I then moved into the became a medical assistant, and which really for me was a first leadership role, and that led into becoming a leading hand in the Royal Navy, medical assistant. And I was there for 9 years, which were happy and sad experiences and life challenges. So I stayed with the Royal Navy and the Royal Marines, got very wide experience and really enjoyed that time. I travelled. I was able to go up to Norway and spend my time in the mountains and doing Arctic warfare training, which I really enjoyed. And that stayed with me through all these years now. So I'm still a very keen walker and mountaineering and just climbing and all these things. So I've really kind of gathered a lot from that. And it's also my personal release as well, to get out in the wilderness, to get out as much of the wilderness in the UK. And really explore and just be by myself and able to collect my thoughts. And I think sometimes I'm a bit of an introvert, but it allows me that peace to get away from people and kind of really focus on what I want. So in that time, I left with very valuable life skills and coping skills and lots of leadership experience, because I'd seen a lot of, had a lot of experience, seen a lot of different types of leadership skills, and it really honed on who I was and how I was to act, how I was to act out my leadership skills, really. And also in this time, I was able to gain lots and lots of qualification and experience that knowledge to be able to make that jump, make that move. And I was really, really lucky. I've started my nursing journey back in 2003 as a student when I was 32 years old. So I was a little bit of a later starter, really. But I finally achieved what I was trying to get to. And I started as a student in the Royal Navy, in Portsmouth University, and then 3 years later I was I still think I was lucky, don't know quite how I did it, but got my honours degree in nursing, and then on to my first job. So ward experience, urology, general surgery ward. That was very formative, very early on. was learning, and this is when I was starting to lead small teams. And that really piqued my interest in leadership. In the forces, in the Royal Navy during this time, I'd done leadership programs, leadership qualifications, leadership skills, and came through out of that, got promoted. So I was really learning how to lead those small teams and how to get the best from people. And I think that part has actually followed me through my career as I was preparing for today. This seemed to be the theme all the way through: how to get the best from people, how to get them to move together, and not by shouting at them. And it's not all about marching around the square and shouting at people. But it's really about how do you get the best from people? How can you influence them? How can you impact them to move along, to follow your vision? So that was very useful. I spent a relatively short time, I think about 18 months there. And then I was selected to go to and help set up a Ministry of Defence innovative project that was tracking and tracing injured service people from all around the world, from point of injury to discharge of care. It was a very small, innovative, motivated group. And that was the thing, they're very, very motivated, really knew what they needed, really understood the projects and what was expected as the outcome. And so be able to do this was my first real global project. And we were able to get this up and running within 2 weeks, which I think surprised everyone really. But we knew, we were motivated, we had good leadership, but also importantly, good fellowship as well. And that was able for us to actually move together in this journey. I was there for, I think 18 months, almost 2 years, which is quite a long deployment in one place. And then the tie came up and I was asked, what did I want to do next? So as a medic, I'd worked a lot in primary healthcare, emergency care, and also in ED. And there was one big gap that everyone was scared of, and I wanted the biggest challenge. And I went to ITU. And I had a little bit of experience there, but I really wanted to have the challenge because I felt as though I'd done enough. I'd had a lot of experiences over the years. And so I decided on ITU. So I went, was there in Portsmouth Hospital. Again, I've gone back to Portsmouth, and I worked in Queen Alexandra's Hospital, and I worked in the ITU there. And I stayed there for about 9 months before I was selected and I was ready to go on to do my ITU course. So it was quite a large, it was a very large learning curve, almost back on itself, I felt at times. But I rose to the challenge because before that, I'd spent almost 2 years in the tracking cell. So I came into ITU, learning to be a nurse again, learning all the challenges and learning to be an ITU, and I survived that journey and I went on to university again for my postgraduate ITU specialisation. From there, moved on to a new leadership role and got some more experiences. And I found myself in the Royal College of Defence Medicine, where I stayed until I left the Navy. So there I worked firstly in trauma and burns and got some paediatric ITU experience, and then went into neurointensive care, which is absolutely my favourite. I'd always been interested in neuro, and now I was really involved with it. And it was a fabulous time. I think it's probably one of the best bits of my career, working with patients in neurointensive care. And before I knew it, that was 23 years over. I completed my service. I was looking 40 in the face, and I could have extended. And then I decided, actually, I think I've done everything I can do here. I need a new opportunity. I need a new challenge. So I decided to move and leave the Navy, and that for new opportunities. So it took a bit of time for me to settle down. And I decided that as I'd already been involved with it, I wanted to take an educational direction, coaching direction. So I first started off next in a clinical skills facilitator role. So it's moving up and down the bands, moving up to get the right experience and knowledge. Worked as a clinical skills facilitator, teaching clinical skills, which is a really enjoyable job. However, I wanted a bit more, and then very luckily I was made aware of another role coming up, and that was to become a practice development nurse for career progression. And that seemed to match my career pathway and how to develop retention and recruitment in band 5 nurses, band 6 nurses, and all the way up. And it was very much a pilot, started off as a pilot. So I went to this new role, and appeared to be successful, so they extended it, so it's now a permanent role. And then 3-4 months ago, I was very lucky and very fortunate to become a Health Education England Fellow for Nursing Now, and particularly in the Nightingale Challenge, where I am today. I think the best bits of this journey really has been people and the friendships made. Learning and watching what makes people tick, really understand, get to see it with lots of examples all over the years and different high profile, high pressure examples to even just normal working. So it's been very, very useful. And I've seen all sorts of behavior and examples of leadership. And it taught me, and I learned how to use my intuition and influence to actually affect changes, when not to be directive and shouting, but there's other ways of leading. Mm-hmm. And that's me to today.
That's amazing. And that's quite the career path that you've had. And just so the listeners know, we connected, through Twitter and with your work with the Nightingale Challenge. So do you want to talk a little bit about what Nursing Now is, and specifically the Nightingale Challenge and your role within that?
Yes, certainly. So the Nightingale Challenge, Nursing Now, let's start there. Nursing Now is a movement that started back in 2018 from John Burdett Nursing, and also the International Council of Nurses. And it comes from the World Health Organization Triple Impact Report that was looking at how do we improve health globally, how do we empower nurses, and by empowering nurses, the majority of them are female, how can we get gender equality, and not just in the UK or in the West, but across the globe, across the world. There's also how can we, from this, we can build stronger economies, and there's also providing universal healthcare, which is the main outcome. Mm-hmm. And really from this is very much the campaign that countries have signed up to. So I'm very pleased to turn around and say now, from today, we've had over 18,828 nurses who've signed up for this, be part of this program. So that's the Nursing Now. So that's the impact, or that's the plan of the Nursing Now 2020, which is running for 3 years and starts on the 1st of January 2020. So in a couple of weeks' time, will run for the entire year. And that's the aims of this movement, of this campaign. Nightingale Challenge is how we can actually achieve this. So Nightingale Challenge was a challenge directed by Sheila Clee and also Lord Nigel Crisp. And the challenge is to all organisers that sign up for this challenge to train 20 early career nurses in some shape or form, to give them leadership development so that they can become stronger, so they become much more, or so they can become advocates and have a voice to affect change, so that we can move to this as a global movement that will eventually in October but to lobby their governments to give nurses that much more, and midwives, I mustn't forget midwives, they're part of this, to actually lobby their governments to affect change within their own cultures, within their communities all around the world. As part of this, we have asked for a minimum or around about 20 nurses. Big organisations have put more in, smaller organisations have put less. And that's 496 employers in 64 countries, and I'm absolutely amazed at this. And this happens in such a short time, really. I've been in the team for 3 months. So it's rapidly increased, and there is no deadline. So this will continue throughout the whole year. And really what the point of this is so that we have a new generation of nurses and these are the ones that will change the future as they're experiencing it, because they're experiencing it, they're right in the moment at the moment. So we need to get those, to give them the voice and the ability and the confidence to make this change.
Mm-hmm. Love that. And I mean, when we were talking prior to recording the podcast a few weeks ago, I had told you that when I was considering launching the International Network of Nurse Leaders, and it had been something I'd been thinking of for many months or even years. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. We need a voice for nursing leadership. And then like 2 weeks later, I saw the announcement of Nursing Now 2020, and Kate Middleton is the patron of this. And I thought, oh boy.
Oh no.
Yeah. So it's still my goal to meet her, but it just goes to show that this is such a needed conversation to be having, and especially with those emerging nurse leaders. And I mean, they're going to be what changes our profession. And it's so exciting that this is such a global conversation now. And so I just want to thank you for the work you're doing, because it is so important.
No, it's very much a team effort, but I'm very honoured to be actually a part of it. This is going to allow us to gather nurses together to talk, meet and unite around the world. There are differences in the influence around the world that nurses have and midwives have. And this is a moment to actually unite and build upon other success, because we're sharing. It's essentially a grassroots movement to improve the lot of everyone involved. Mm-hmm. We are really trusted, but we're not the most influential. And which is crazy sometimes. I look at it and think, well, we have such a high profile as nurses and midwives, but we have the least voice. So we need to learn. We need to learn from those who have the influence, and learn from them and see what they do and apply it in our own way. And we talk amongst ourselves, and we need to share this as one body across the world.
I love that. And that actually is one of my questions that I ask a lot of the guests, is that Nursing Now 2020's mandate is to help raise the profile and status of nurses. And even though we consistently rank as the most trusted profession, we're definitely not the most influential. And so I asked the guests, what can we do every day to help achieve this mandate and increase our influence in terms of policy and decision making? So I love that you just mentioned that, and as well gave some advice on, watch what others are doing and how they're influencing. Do you have any other suggestions for increasing our influence in terms of policy and decision making as nurses that any nurse can do?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm seeing is everyone joining together, and I don't think I've ever seen a room full of nurses or a group of nurses and midwives actually agree on anything, but there's 64 countries agreeing, which is quite impressive, really. And it's not stopping; it's carrying on. So what people can do is get involved with this movement, get involved with any movement you can. This is becoming a powerful movement. This is becoming a very powerful voice for nurses and midwives. And it's getting involved in learning how to lead and become the influencers and grow ourselves. There is a power in unity, and we have some of the most amazing role models out there. And I think sometimes we forget that. We have a blind spot. We've recently interviewed Elizabeth Hero, who's the chief nurse of the World Health Organization, on one of the webinars. And there are many others out there, and she shared her journey. And it was very inspiring. And it's available online on the Nursing Now campaign website. But what we also have to do is also not just get behind the campaign, but also get behind the Nightingale Challenge, which is seeking to actually, to provide the nurses and midwives with, in their early careers, to gain leadership skills. But get behind it. You have to get involved. We all have a voice, we have an opinion, and much to my unsurprise, I suppose, this was shared throughout the world. I've spoken to nurses from Zimbabwe, Canada, America, Spain, most recently, where we did a webinar for the whole of Latin America. And they're all saying the same things. They all want the same things. We need to come together. We need to get behind things. This is a very powerful vehicle to help develop things, and this is for all parts of the career pathway. There is a very powerful and quite influential Nursing Now youth movement with a lot of speakers. And I recently, when you were doing your not just a nurse campaign and the start of your day, some of the speakers that are involved in that were some of your speakers. So I was very pleased to see that there's more involvement around the students. So we recently involved not just a professor from Spain, but also the president, George Chavez, who's the Mexican student nurses group. He was involved with all this, and it's uniting everyone. Get involved. Find a place, any little part that you do, but get involved. This is a vehicle to really develop yourselves and to develop your profession around you.
I love that. And, you mentioned the Not Just a Nurse Day, and that was where it was amazing, the response that we had to that, and the people and the nurses that reached out from all over the world. And we had nurses in Chile that made this video with their patients that held up little posters that said, hashtag Not Just a Nurse. And it's a global movement out there, and nurses are looking for this. And it's just so amazing to see everybody come together united under this one voice. And it's going to be such an amazing year. 2020, year of the nurse and the midwife. There's a lot of amazing things happening. So like Matt said, if you're out there listening, get involved in something, whether it's locally, provincially, or your state level, or, nationally or internationally. Just get involved and find that passion for nursing again, and get re-enthused with these amazing people that are doing incredible works in the world, because it just elevates our whole profession when we start championing each other and having these elevated conversations. So Matt, I just want to chat. You have done a lot of work with leadership and coaching nurses. One of the things I hear from nurses is that they didn't realize that leadership was even a career path in nursing. And they don't have maybe a formal role or title that designates them as a leader, but they're interested in it. So what advice would you have for nurses getting involved in leadership?
To get involved in leadership, it really is my firm belief. And I saw this even before I was a nurse, and then my own journey into nursing as a student, and then being a junior nurse, early career nurse myself. Nurses are already using leadership at a very early point in their career. There's many types of leadership that we're taught widely, but look at what we're doing from the very offset. As a student nurse, we become part of a team. You're actually involved with those leadership, especially nowadays. I'm seeing it. But as soon as you're qualified as well, you are part of a team, and you're leading a team. You're leading patients. You're leading relatives. You're leading your healthcare worker colleagues. So it's this small team, and this is where you're learning the real basics. There are other types of leadership, the autocratic, the democratic. There's many other examples around the world, but you may not feel as though you're actually exercising these, but you really are. Nurses are reflective by nature, or at least we're encouraged to be. So it's what are you doing in your daily life and your work life? That is leadership. Is it small time? Is it small team leadership? Is it family life, work, community teams, outside in your hobbies and sports and things like that? This is all leadership, and it's scalable. You're learning the basics now. You are part of that leadership journey. It's the second you step into nursing education, you're learning it, and it's all scalable, like I said. As you grow more experienced, more knowledgeable, and through position, I think you become more aware through title and job description. You've already learned the basics and exercised them. But sometimes I think with programs, with courses, things like that, people only see it after an official course, that they've got a certificate or a stamp or something like that. And it's worth reflecting on this. We're already leading through advocate, through interaction, through the MDT as well, but also just by being patient advocates, we are leading. Mm-hmm. Nurse leadership career pathways are very much an extension of this. It is a profession in its own right, leadership career pathways, and it is for everyone if you so choose. If you so choose it, it's a profession where nurses become leaders with their own rights and within their own mind, and when they take on a mantle of authority and position, but also they are an extension of nurse advocacies, and nurses are really important in this as nurse leaders, because they bring a very unique voice and a professional approach to a wider audience, and they have an influence as well.
Mm-hmm. And it's really about, like I said, shedding that just a nurse mentality and really seeing ourselves as
Very
leaders
much so.
and starting to
Yeah.
identify as I am a leader. I am a nurse. I am a leader, and finding those opportunities every day to, exercise your voice and stand up for what, your patients or what you believe in, stand up for your colleagues, and just, find those opportunities to create connection and kindness for people. That's being a leader.
Yeah,
And it doesn't have to come with an official title. So I love that.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey nurses, I just wanted to take a quick break from the podcast and tell you about something really important that's happening. So 2020 has been designated as Year of the Nurse and the Midwife. And it's really great to be celebrating nurses and to be sharing trending hashtags. But what we really need to do is get into action, because it's up to us. And nothing is going to change if we don't make the change. So there's a movement happening and it needs you. We're stronger together. So come join us as we disrupt the status quo and evolve our profession. It's time. We are stronger together. So let's get started. If you want to know how you can join this movement of change, visit nurseleaders.ca/2020nurse to opt in for a free 3-part video series about how we can use 2020, the Year of the Nurse and Midwife, as the year we finally use our collective voice and lead our profession forward. So jump over to nurseleaders.ca/2020nurse for all the details. Now back to the episode. So Matt, what do you think, and I mean, this is a loaded question, but what do you think is one of the biggest challenges that is facing nursing today? And how might we go about solving that challenge?
Biggest challenges, blimey, there are many. I think some of the biggest challenges today in nursing is around recruitment and retention. But mainly the retention of nurses, either locally or globally. And again, this is what I'm seeing. Unsurprisingly, as again, talking to many different people, it's keeping our nurses. How are we keeping nurses? So I've recently read Mark Britnell's book, Human, Solving the Global Workforce Crisis in Healthcare. We recently published an article and a word by him, but it really got me interested in how culture, society is changing. Are we keeping up as a profession? We're going to be 15 million health workers short by 2030, which is an incredible amount. And we need to start thinking about new adaptive ways to deal with this, either using technology, and this is what you focus on by reorganizing new models of care and also workforce agility. But the retention of nurses is around this. It's got many, many aspects, which is really requires, it's not just one place, one hospital, one trust, one organization, one country's role to do this, but we have to come together. And this is very much what the Nursing Now and Nightingale Challenge are preparing people for, to look at this. This is part of this. Not only have we got the world's countries and their cultures, but there's also different nursing cultures to consider. And they need to share and collaborate to address those issues together. At the end of it, it's everybody's problem globally. And we need to step out what I think are our silos and discuss this as a global profession. We all have ideas, solutions and successes. Now is the time when we should be sharing them.
I agree so much. And the one thing, that is great with the Nursing Now 2020 and the Nightingale Challenge, and even with, what we're trying to achieve at the International Network of Nurse Leaders, is bringing nurses together from all over the globe, because we can't solve the problems if we keep doing it the same way, or just learning from the people that are doing it the same way as us, maybe just a teeny bit different. We really need out of the box ideas, and bringing that global perspective in is truly the way to learn, but also looking outside of our industry and our profession at what else is working in other places and how do we adapt that for nursing. So I love that perspective. Yeah. So Matt, as a leader in nursing, what change do you hope to impact in your career? What would you like your nursing legacy to be when it's all said and done?
My legacy, blimey. Okay. That is a good
Another
question.
loaded question.
Loads.
Yeah.
I like to change the world, get a magic wand and change everything. I think as a leader in this profession, and sometimes in the past I have questioned, am I a leader? But yeah, I think I am. I think I would hope to be able to influence the breakdown of barriers in collaborative working, either within local regions or even bigger globally. And this is just a massive, perfect world. If I can help just one organization to develop a relationship that leads to solutions elsewhere, I'll be happy. As a legacy, I would want to leave a strong global network where one nurse can discuss their issues and problems with another, regardless of their distance, culture, or language.
That's amazing. So Matt, you do work with team leadership and how to get the best out of teams. What would be some suggestions you have? We have lots of nurse managers who listen to this podcast who do lead teams of nurses that maybe work in union environments where it's not as easy to necessarily move somebody out of there. But what sort of tips or suggestions do you have from the experiences you've had in doing team leadership to get the best out of the members on your team?
I think really what this is dialogue, to actually understand internally, externally what is going on. I think that nurses do have the power to change the world, to change things. Essentially, my guiding principle would be get involved, either locally, either hospital, clinic, wherever you do, to really understand, but also regionally, nationally, and also internationally. Okay, because change comes from a vision, and you can either have your own vision or you can attach yourself to a vision. Things like global movements, you've got the WHO, the ICN, you've got Nursing Now, and you can actively participate in all of this. But also volunteer, and it's advocacy as well. It's lending your voice. Social media is a massive tool around this. Get involved, you will lead through this way. So how do I get the best out of my team? So it's understanding, it's dialogue, actually understand who your team are. There are lots of different ways to lead teams. There's lots of different ways and lots of models that you can use, but actually the very first thing boils down to understanding and have the courage to admit to yourself where there are gaps in your knowledge. It's really hard to be a first-time leader when you've got good role models or bad role models and you're finding your way. I remember some of the very first situations I was in as a new leader, and I could have, knowing now what I didn't know then, it could have gone a lot smoother. Where I was trying to apply different models that I'd learned from the book. They sometimes work, but actually we're working with humans. We're working with people with emotions and etc. So it can be quite difficult to actually find the right thing to actually do. My overriding concern would be firm, kind and fair, using compassion. Compassionate leadership is one of the highest prized skills, and I've seen it in action, and I've been the recipient of that, of compassionate leadership, when it made the difference, where I've learned, I've been able to copy what was said, it's inspired me. That person has been a role model for quite some years now, and she carries on becoming, just continuing, she's just an amazing role model. Understand your people, firm, kind and fair, compassionate leadership. You have a vision, there is a way to move forward with these things. There's no need, don't apply a model to a person when actually you've got to, but we're nurses, we're advocates, and we are also compassionate leaders as well. And we need to, sometimes I think that's something that we forget.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, just my own personal experience, there was years that I worked as a nurse, and I don't even think my
Yeah.
manager knew my name. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and there
Yep. Been
wasn't
there.
that compassion, leadership. And then, so that's one of the things, as a manager of my own team,
Yeah.
that I really try and make everyone that I'm, leading and involved with, make them feel as though they're a person that matters.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking out for them, because that's what I feel my job is. My job is to
Yeah.
make sure that my staff feel cared for and
Yeah.
important, so that they can make patients feel cared for
And
and important.
I think one of the things to take away is to actually really understand that kindness is not weakness. It takes a strong leader to show kindness and to act in it.
Mm-hmm.
Have much more an impact on performance, morale, all of these things.
Yeah, and I think that's the wave of new leadership that's rising up,
Yeah.
is this kind, compassion,
Yeah.
leadership that looks for connection. And I mean, you're still
Yeah.
able to stand your ground and have those difficult conversations.
Of course.
But it's really with leading with kindness instead of, that iron fist and yelling.
Yeah.
So, Matt, the vision statement of the International Network of Nurse Leaders is, "We believe in the power of nurses to change the world." What do you think of that statement? And in your opinion, are there some social issues or platforms that nurses can put their collective voice behind to make a difference?
Yeah. So, very interesting statement. I mean, you were saying before about seeing nursing now in the campaign, thinking, oh, that's what I've been trying to do. Essentially, what you said there, that has been my guiding principle. And one of the first steps is to get involved. Local, regional, national, there's international, there's all sorts of global movements around you. There's within on a local level, regional, there are regional, either unions or there's so many things there. But the important thing is to get involved. Your voice will not be heard if you are part of a silent group. Mm-hmm. Movements, there's WHO, there's ICN, there's Nursing Now, and actively participate in the Nightingale Challenge. There's I've recently discovered the Mexican Nursing Students Association, which are amazing. They're just so vibrant, powerful around their messages. It's around volunteering and advocacy. This is really what to do, is become involved, volunteer, lend your voice. And the biggest tool that we have around this thing, and it's a massive, very important tool, is social media. If you're not sure how to use it all, ask an expert. You've got the Nursing Now youth. There's global voices. There's thinkers, there's doers, there's leaders. And leadership is not just a stage in front of an audience. There are many platforms. This is one of them. It's not standing up in front of people, directing, shouting, telling them what to do. There's many ways of influencing people. There's different leadership styles, as well as the most common ones that you have that we all learn about. Don't forget, there's reflective leadership.
So, Matt, what are some things that you see happening today that make you proud to be a nurse and proud of where our profession is heading?
Wow, there's loads. There's loads of things. The whole profession is changing in front of my eyes, and it's so encouraging. It's really exciting to see. There's things like nurse consultants and all new roles coming out. There's different ways to access nursing careers. There's pockets of nurse leadership that are forming around the world that I'm seeing, yourself included, and all these things. The quality of nurses leaving the universities and heading off into academia is just amazing. These people are brighter and sharper than I'll ever be, hopefully. And so, I'm seeing this flow of future leaders that are coming through, and it's so encouraging. If I can just influence one or two of them, they will go on to influence others, and then others, and then others. It will really change. There's the development of a shared global vision of the nursing profession, which I'm seeing at the moment. So, like I said, there's 64 countries to date in the Nightingale Challenge. I doubt if I could get 64 nurses to agree on, and midwives to agree on anything. But something changing in the profession. And I actually feel really, really fortunate to have a front row seat in this, because it's just amazing.
Yeah, I agree. And it just, that piece you said about, if you can impact one person, what are they going to go out an impact, right?
Yeah.
That ripple effect. And
Yep.
for our listeners that are like, oh, I don't have a, professional title or that sort of thing. That's how you be a leader every day.
Yeah.
Is look to impact one person's life, because you don't know what that ripple effect is going to be, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. One of the hardest things that I've seen people do, or in my own self, I've always been a bit of a rebel, but I like challenging the status quo, especially when it's important, when things will change. It's led me into all sorts of adventures, but it's standing up. Not everyone will stand behind you, but people eventually will start following you. It's having that influence to do it. And it does take guts. It does take that point where you do need to stand up. But there are many, many people all around the world that are doing exactly the same thing, are taking their first steps, and they're finding their role models. And all of a sudden in this campaign, all of these role models and all of these inspirational figures are much more accessible.
And that's, one of the key pieces too, is as a leader, remembering professional generosity. So when somebody approaches you and asks for advice or help or mentorship, is really giving back, because it's amazing. The nurse leaders that I've been connected with through this podcast, yourself included, who've given their time, to share their advice with nurses. And it elevates our whole profession when we're acting out of that place of professional generosity and that mindset that there's enough for everybody. And so if you see somebody doing something well, or you recognize leadership in somebody else, acknowledge that and encourage them to pursue that. It's not going to take away from your opportunities. There's room for everybody. And I think we really need to flip that mindset a little bit. That there's room for everybody, and we need to start encouraging each other in order to evolve and elevate the profession.
Yeah. One of the big things that I learned from my time with the Royal Navy and the Royal Marines is there's to get a team together, to get people to work together, but as leaders, each member of that team can be leaders, but you need a shared vision and a shared ethos. There's courage, determination, unselfishness, and cheerfulness that will get you through most of this, some of the most arduous times that you'll come across. And people need to have the courage to change, and to change that status quo. There's allies, there's evidence all around you. The most important thing is look outside your bubble, look outside your silo, read, learn, and adapt. There's so much out there that you can use. A lot of my work, especially in my most recent jobs, is to reading everything that's available and then looking outside what is available. So I've been, looking at business journals, things like that. That's stuff that can be adapted into what you need it to be, because you have a guiding vision, and that road on that vision can be quite lonely and tough. You've got to have that there is that part of that self-confidence, and it's that confidence within yourself. But there are very, very much, as we're seeing, a lot of like-minded people all around the world.
I love that. So Matt, is there anything we haven't touched on today that you would like the listeners to know about, or any other information you wanted to provide on the Nightingale Challenge?
I think it's important to really become aware of what's happening. All the information about the Nightingale Challenge, Nursing Now, is online. You may have heard of it. I suspect that people have heard of it, because it's become quite vibrant in its build-up. Get involved. Get involved. Find out what this is about. Look around you and see, what part of this do I belong to? You can make a difference. You can take things forward, and find your allies.
Awesome. All right. So to wrap up, I always ask the guests to provide listeners with 3 tangible takeaways or pieces of advice. You've just given a lot right now in the last couple of answers.
Oh, right, sorry.
Did we hit all of them that you wanted to?
I think some of them, but I'm very happy to share what I have.
Yes, please do.
Okay. So the first thing really is find an inspirational role model, whether from your peers or further afield. There are plenty of them. Have aspirations, follow them, and believe in your abilities. Nurses and midwives, they're bright, clever professionals that are key to making these great changes. But most importantly, vision is everything. You need to share it and you can make it a reality. Remember that you're leading and driving it. For a while, it may be by yourself, but you have the power to make it happen.
Ooh, those are great pieces. We're going to stick those on our Instagram quote cards and share them out because, yeah, those are great. So Matt, it has been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to make sure that the Nightingale Challenge information, Nursing Now 2020, how to connect with you is all linked on the show notes.
Thank you.
So if anybody's looking for that information, it's at nurseleaders.ca/podcast, and you just click on Matt's picture and all the information will be there so that they can learn how to get involved and connected with you. And to close our episode today, I would love if you would share a story from your nursing career that's had an impact on you.
Oh, right. Okay. There's been many, many events over the years. There's not been that many years really, but there's been a lot of events from all different areas. So there's one I can share. I won't go into details. So it's really this. I was working in a very high pressure environment in an ICU, and I had to make decisions and bear responsibilities for my actions in a leadership role. That was very isolated. This led to a very highly undesirable incident between myself and a senior clinician that was very highly emotive and really professionally challenging. I'd not seen any of this before, and I've never seen it since. It was a really one-off. I had the support and the compassionate leadership of several of my senior leaders that showed me the value of listening, understanding, and supporting, that showed me the values of courage, determination, and selfishness and cheerfulness throughout the whole thing. The matter was dealt with very professionally and to satisfaction. I'm just so very, very grateful for their support. This inspired me to be the best that I can be to this day and to pass on those lessons learned.
I love that. And it just showcases how important leadership and leading with kindness and compassion can influence an entire career. Really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing that. And Matt, thank you for being here with us today. Like I said, we'll make sure that people can get in touch with you and learn more about the Nightingale Challenge and Nursing Now 2020. It's all going to be linked on the show notes. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today and for listening. I hope you have a great day. Bye, everybody.
Hi, nurses. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Shift Change podcast. I want to take a moment and talk to you about something really important that's happening this year. As you probably know, World Health Organization designated 2020 as Year of the Nurse and Midwife. And while it's important to celebrate the nurses and participate in all these events that are happening, we need to make sure that we are being strategic about making this the year that we really use our collective voice to raise the profile and status of nurses and advance our profession. Understandably, some of you may feel resistance to this call to action. After all, how can we expect nurses to raise the profile and status of nurses and advance the profession when oftentimes nurses aren't even getting a proper break to sit down, eat something, or even use the bathroom on their shift? But you know what? If we don't act and act now, nothing will ever change. No one is coming to save the nursing profession from the burnout and exhaustion, from the staffing crises and nursing shortage, from the violence and bullying, from the budget cuts, and all the other threats to our profession that we are currently facing. Only we can save ourselves. And that can only happen when we decide enough is enough. We must decide that this is the year that we are going to use our collective voice to shout our value to the world, to introduce innovative and revolutionary ideas into healthcare, to advocate for our patients and our profession, to shed the just a nurse mentality and claim our position as leaders, and in doing so, change our profession. This year, 2020, Year of the Nurse and the Midwife, you get to decide. Is this the year that everything changes? Is this the year that we finally say enough is enough and break through the status quo? Is this the year that you, yes, each one of you, decide that you are tired of just complaining and actually put in the work to make a change? Because the truth is, it is up to us. And nothing changes if no one changes. Let me say that again. Nothing changes if no one changes. There is a movement happening, and it needs you. We are stronger together. Come join us as we disrupt the status quo and evolve our profession. It's time. It's our time. We're stronger together, so let's get started. If you want to know how you can join the movement of change, visit nurseleaders.ca/2020nurse to opt in for a free 3-part video series about how we can use 2020, the year of the nurse and midwife, as the year we use our collective voice and lead our profession forward. So jump on over to nurseleaders.ca/2020nurse for all the details. I'll see you over there.